Hey everyone, welcome to the 78th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential. And as the title may show in the video, or in the title sequence below the video, we are talking about Tammy the Squirrel. And yeah, can you believe I have not yet talked about this character? I mean, you would think that I've talked about Gadget and I've talked about Foxglove, both from the Rescue Rangers, but yet, to complete the trio, I've never talked about Tammy until now. Well, better late than never. No time like the present, right? So, who is Tammy, by the way? Well, Tammy was a character introduced, I think, in the 7th episode of the early spring preview episodes of Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers in 1989 in the episode Adventures in Squirrel City. Now, the reason I say that these were the early spring preview episodes is because, as I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again, during this time, even up to about the mid-90s, Disney Channel had this routine that, they would take up-and-coming fall-related animated shows. They're going to be premiering in syndication, maybe Saturday mornings, what have you. And they would give people that was subscribed to the Disney Channel, back when Disney Channel, up until about the mid-90s, was part of a premium service. They would allow people that had the Disney Channel to get a sneak peek of what was to come later that year in the fall of that, basically, of that year. And Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers was one of those shows. And as a part of this early showcase, they would show off episodes that were already made and ready to air. It would basically contain, from what I understand, about, It would consist of basically 13 episodes for what many, including Wikipedia, considered its first season. So the first 13 episodes of the 65 episode series, of any series back then, or at that time frame, would air its first 13 episodes on Disney Channel as part of Disney Channel's spring sneak peek of what was to come in the fall. Now, sometimes they would continue this up until at least midsummer. Then they would take that show off of Disney Channel so that you could be properly prepared for its debut in syndication about a few months later. Now, like I said, Tammy's debut episode, Adventures in Squirrel City, was the 7th episode in the original 13, the first 13 that were part of that spring sneak peek. And the way she came about was, she's the daughter of this mother squirrel who the Rangers crash into. Literally, the mother and her daughters are just having a, casual slice of life day. Nothing out of the ordinary going on. Mother's hanging the clothes. The kids are playing. Tammy's watching her sister playing chase with her or something like that. And then literally the Rangers come out of nowhere, like out of the sky, and crash right into the mom after they retrieved this item called the Maltese mouse. Now, how Tammy, comes into play here is basically what happens is after the Rangers crash into the mother squirrel and into her home, and you have both Chip and Dale kind of congratulating each other on, yes, we got the Maltese mouse back. That's when they hear screams for help, yells for help, and they all go outside, and basically Fat Cat has both the girls, both Tammy and her younger sister Bink, by the tails, and he's basically holding them for ransom. He's saying, hey, I'll give them back, you give me back, the Maltese mouse. In other words, it's like, to him, it's a fair exchange. You give me what I want, I'll give you what you want. And that's what happens. But being typical fat cat, yeah, he lives up to his end of the bargain. But basically, instead of just handing them over gently, he drops them like a sack of potatoes. Thankfully, you had Dale and Monty catching Bink, or at least Bink bouncing off of Dale's head into Monterey's arms. And then you have Tammy being caught by Chip, who tumbles with her on the branch, if you will, after he catches her. And basically, it's thanks to that moment, after Chip asks if she's all right, and she looks up, she sees, and you got to watch the episode to see what I'm talking about, because basically, you have this ambience of like heavenly light right behind Chip as he's standing up, and he's standing there and he's asking Tammy if she's all right. And the moment she sees him, it's like Cupid's arrow went boing, right on her. And she just ended up being smitten with him ever since then. Basically, she acknowledged he saved her. She calls him her hero. She hugs him. He blushes. But then basically what happens is, in exchange to make up for what the Rangers did by accident, not intentionally, by accident, for messing up the mother's house, they agree, hey, you know what? Well, actually, it's Gadget that makes the suggestion that, maybe we should, watch the kids for her tonight while she cleans this up. And the mother likes the idea. She overhears it. She likes it. And basically, the Rangers are like, okay, fine. We screwed up. We unintentionally messed up your house. So guess what? We'll take your kids in and we'll go from there. Now, Tammy basically is a little embarrassed because when she hears her mom say the word babysat about her and Bink, she's like, Mom, I'm too old to be babysat. But then when she looks at Chip, she goes like, but I'll go along just to help Chipper with the baby. And it's like, and Chip's blushing after she mentions this, and it's like, and the way he blushes because honestly, the way Tammy mentions, I'll go along to help Chip with the baby, it's almost like she's hinting or implying that, she wants to be the mother of his kid. But anyway, that's just how I saw it. I'm pretty sure everybody else did. But anyway, to get through this, if you will, to not rushing or anything, but to get through this whole video as best I can. Basically, they go to Ranger headquarters, and basically what happens is Tammy, I think, kind of pushes herself a little bit. And I don't mean like pushes herself, as in other words, she's pushing herself to work hard and, live up to watching her sister and all that. But, excuse me there. But basically, Tammy pushes herself way too much onto Chip. Because what happens is that there's a lot, basically, well, if you look at the title of the episode, it's called Adventures in Squirrel Sitting. The title is a play off the movie Adventures in Babysitting. And if anybody that's seen that movie, and I think I've seen it like a few times, basically escapades galore happen with the babysitter and her charges for that night. So, so basically, the same kind of happens here. All kinds of escapades occur. Tammy wants to spend time alone with Chip. What's the first thing she does? Oh yeah. They're gonna show Tammy around. So it's like, okay, because it's like, okay, excuse me. Because basically what happens is that, like I said, Chip decides, okay, me and Gadget will show Tammy around the headquarters. Let us see what it's like. Give her a tour. And basically, Dale and Monterey are left to watch over Bink because she's a little bit more hyperactive. So anyway, through this tour, Tammy, like I said, she kind of keeps pushing herself on Chip. Chip is asking her nicely at first to not call him Chipper. Basically, they, like I said, they take her on a tour of the headquarters. They show off everything. Tammy's like, oh, look. She sees the kitchen and she's impressed by it, saying she can make all kinds of magnificent dishes for you here in the kitchen. Basically, acknowledging Chip straightforward. I mean, and here's what's funny. There's even a moment when they're getting ready to show Tammy the rest of the headquarters, starting with Gadget's workshop. And Tammy's like, oh, Gadget doesn't need to come, Chip. And Chip has to basically remind her, excuse me, it's her workshop, and please don't call me Chipper. And you think to yourself, well, wait a minute. Why did Tammy say Gadget didn't need to come with them into her own workshop? And, well, nowadays, looking back on it, you kind of may get the idea of she's trying to spend alone time with Chip. She's trying to get him alone. And, she's a kid or a teenager, a young adult teenager, if you will. So, basically, they go to the workshop, and Gadget shows off some of her things, and Chip kind of compliments her. And Tammy's like, yeah, that's cool if you're into that kind of thing. Or you like that kind of person. And then she decides to drag Chip off like, come on, Chip, there's got to be more to see than Gadget's smelly old workshop. And then, and honestly, right here, this moment and then what happens later on is where you really start to get the idea as to why Tammy is pushing herself on Chip and why she's acting so against Gadget, why she's acting not, physically aggressive, but kind of like, very rudely aggressive towards Gadget, right? It's mainly because of the fact that after Chip saves Bink from disaster, because Bink, Bink decides to go off on her own, take off. And when they find her, what's interesting about this is Tammy is so smitten. She's so smitten, and it's like she's the love has blinded her, if you know what I mean, to Chip, that she points out the window, saying, "Oh, there she is." And basically, the line I remember, the line she says after this when she points out where Bink is, or where Bink's located at, she says, she's such a child, and it's like, you watch this, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, who is she saying this to? What is she saying? But you got to remember, if you look at it from the perspective nowadays, you have to look at the fact that Tammy is a young adult, a young teenage, not a young teenager, but kind of a young adult, late teen / young adult is what she is, if you will. She's kind of like in that 15 to 17 age range, if you want to look at it that way. Anyway, long story short, Chip ends up saving Bink, and this is where it kind of gets really interesting, and I mentioned this in my updated Gadget Romance discussions video and podcast that I did. Basically, Chip compliments Gadget on helping them out. Tammy doesn't like hearing this, and basically turns it around and says, "No, but Chip, you were the one that was really brave, so heroic kind of deal." And what happens, and I think this is where it pushes Chip over the edge, is after Tammy kind of throws the compliment over to Chip instead of Chip, giving it to Gadget, Tammy being obviously jealous, and saying that he was heroic, he was brave. What happens next, again, like I said, kind of pushes Chip over the edge, I think, or kind of pushes him over that line, because the moment Tammy says that to Chip, you see Monterey and Dale and even Zipper, I believe, teasing Chip about Tammy's feelings for him, her crush, and her nicknaming him. And again, like I said, this kind of pushes him over the edge, or at least pushes him over that line, to where he just finally, I guess, in his own method, his own mind, he puts his foot down, and Tammy, of course, again, blind and smitten by love, even though Chip is putting his foot down and basically confining her to him in Dale's room along with her sister, basically, there's a line that the moment, because after the teasing by Dale in Monterey, we transition over to the next scene where, like I say, he's confining her to him in Dale's room along with her sister. Tammy says the one line that really, I think, adds to, the teasing that happened in the previous scene. And she basically, and that line is, "But Chipper, we have Rescue Ranger stuff to do." And Chip has to basically tell her, "You are not a Rescue Ranger, you are just a kid." And then when she tries to explain herself by saying, "But Chipper," and he really gets right in her face saying, "And don't call me Chipper." And of course, this hurts her feelings. She, falls onto Chip's bed crying, her face in the pillow. And then as soon as they leave, that being Chip, Dale, and Gadget, and Dale and Gadget here are the ones, they eyewitnesses. They see this and they're like, "That wasn't necessary." Like, what? Like, what? Like, where did this come from you? Like, this wasn't necessary. That wasn't necessary. Because, they feel sorry for Tammy because they both understand, wait a minute, Tammy likes him. Why doesn't he see that, right? So after they leave, Tammy basically makes it her mission to say, basically what I'm trying to say is, after they leave, Tammy sits up on the side of the bed and says the line that I will prove, something along the lines of, she's going to prove that she's every bit as good as Gadget. And right there, again, is the jealousy, because Tammy at that time, and she doesn't find this out till later, thinks that Gadget does all this stuff to win Chip's affections, his attention, if you will. But hold on. But to any fan, longtime fan that is, even nowadays, we could all see why exactly Chip acted the way he did. Now, was he justified in some things? Yes, there's no doubt he might have been justified. But his reaction towards her when he finally put a foot down, you have to agree with the reaction by Chip, not Chip, but Dale and Gadget. You gotta kind of agree with the emotional reaction by Dale and Gadget when they see what Chip did. So again, was he justified? Yeah, but like I said, him putting his foot down the way he did, the reaction, finally just blowing up, if you will, again, you have to agree with the reaction by Dale and Gadget that it was unnecessary. So anyway, getting back to the point here, Tammy decides after they leave that she, along with her sister, she takes her sister with her, that she's going to prove that she's every bit as good as Gadget. Unbeknownst to her, as I was trying to mention, that the reason Chip acted this way wasn't because she was pushing herself too much and overstepping her boundaries, but mainly anybody that's a longtime fan can see this a mile away, long time, or even back then at that time when it first came out, can see that the reason Chip resented the way Tammy was acting towards him wasn't because he didn't want to be friends, no. But from a character and continuity standpoint, it's mainly because in series, Chip has affections for Gadget. The way he compliments her at times in the episode, you could see that. So obviously, Chip not realizing that, hey, there might be someone else outside of the Rangers that has a thing for you, and basically letting his affection for Gadget kind of blind him to that, you got to look at it as being, what he gets next being justified. Because what happens next, after Tammy says she's going to prove herself to be every bit as good as Gadget, so she can prove herself to Chip, the next scene that we get is Chip sitting on the beanbag chair basically saying to himself, oh, those kids are a pain. I'll sure be glad when they're gone. And then that's when he's confronted by the rest of the team about his actions. First it's Gadget that speaks up and says, I'm surprised at you, Chip. Yep, I'm surprised at... Basically, Gadget says, I'm surprised at you, Chip. You hurt Tammy's feelings. How could you be so hard on her? And then Dale gives Chip a bit of a dose of his own medicine when, because Chip's always been known to hitting Dale on the head. Dale gives Chip a taste of his own medicine by doing that to him, going, and basically pointing out the obvious, which the entire audience, the viewing audience knows of, and that's, she likes you, you big dummy. And Chip, he trying to come up with a reasoning to justify his actions. He's like, and everyone, Gadget, Monterey, Dale, Zipper, all giving him that knowing look. And Gadget leans in just a little bit more with that knowing look of, you were saying, what was that? What's your excuse? And it's only then where Chip kind of does that deep sigh, like, you're right. I screwed up. And basically, when he goes to apologize to Tammy for his actions and explain to her that he does like her, really, it's just that, and I think what he was going to say when he says it's just that, before he discovered the note that Tammy left behind about what she was going to do, I think what Chip was going to explain by saying it's just that, I think what he was going to explain was the fact that, he didn't, basically that he has, the same way Tammy has feelings for him, he has feelings for Gadget. That's the thing. That's the entire situation. That maybe he was going to explain that, when he was telling Tammy, I like you, really, it's just that it's just the reason I kind of pushed back at you is because just like you have feelings for me, I have those same feelings for Gadget. Or, whatever. I mean, he could have even explained that it's just, that he's just been frustrated with the fact that they had to give the Multane's mounts back to Fat Cat, and they haven't had a chance to plan a strategy to get it back themselves. Anyway, long story short, they go to rescue the kids, Tammy and her sister. Gadget's the one that actually goes to Fat Cat's headquarters, his main headquarters, his office, to find her. And then this is the moment where we get this confrontation. Not a physical one, but basically, Tammy just lets it all out to Gadget. Like, because, at first Tammy's like, oh, Tammy's at first glad to see Gadget. And Gadget's like, okay, Tammy, let's go home. Let's get you out of here. And Tammy tries to make up the excuse like, oh, but you shouldn't have come. I'm looking undercover kind of deal. And then when Gadget says, well, maybe I could help. The moment Gadget says she suggests that maybe she could help Tammy, that's when Tammy finally just lets it out. She says, no, I don't need your help. I want to prove to Chip that I'm just as special as you. And then that's when Gadget has to lay it down for her. She has to basically, reel her in and, lay reality on her by saying, Tammy, I don't know where you got that from. I don't know where you got that thought process from, because I'm not trying to impress Chip or anybody else. And since she gives her the moral of the episode that, you don't try to impress somebody by being somebody you're not. You just be yourself. And then that's special enough. And that's enough for Tammy to kind of, realize how foolish she was and accept Gadget's friendship. Because the moment Gadget puts her hand on her shoulder by saying, I'm not doing exactly what you think I'm doing, that's not the case. That's when Tammy kind of realizes, she's been basically foolhardy. She basically let her crush, her love at first sight for Chip kind of blind her to the truth. So anyway, getting to the end of the episode, or getting to the end here, basically they rescue Tammy, they rescue Bink, they go through another escapade, this time with Fat Cat, because Fat Cat pretty much sees through what they're doing, because they try to go in disguise to rescue the girls. And basically, like I said, they go through all these different escapades and everything. They finally get the Maltese Mouse back, and they get the girls back to the mom without the mom even knowing anything about what happened the previous night. And it ends basically with Chip complimenting Tammy by saying, maybe you are ready to be a rescue ranger, because during that final climax, Tammy comes up with an idea to kind of create like a rope to climb on. So she basically takes the bottoms of the dresses that both Dale and Chip are wearing to kind of get a lasso, a rope created for them to climb up on, to avoid being squashed on a conveyor belt, because they're being they're in a cat food factory. So, Fat Cat decides he's going to turn the Rangers into Ranger Pate. Anyway, like I said, Chip compliments her, saying maybe you are meant to be a rescue ranger, maybe you are ready. And then Tammy's like, maybe not. And she says maybe not when she's looking at Gadget. But then she says, but I still think you're cute. Hugs Chip and basically kisses him right on the cheek. And the episode ends with them all laughing and Chip kind of blushing with a smile on his face. And that was Tammy's only animated appearance in the series, in the 7th episode of the series, in the original 13 spring sneak peek episodes. And we wouldn't see Tammy again officially until I think was around issue 7 or 8 of the Boom Studios revival by Ian Brill of Rescue Rangers. And as I mentioned before, you could tell that Ian Brill was a fan just like the rest of us, because he's basically taken a lot of elements that we fans kind of used our imaginations and expanded on with for these characters. And he took some of those elements and implemented them into the 8-part Ranger Revival comic at Boom Studios. So, yeah. Basically, Tammy does return there, and we find out that she didn't become a ranger, she became a head nurse. And it's all because of the inspiration that Chip and the Rangers gave her. And she still refers to him as Chipper. So she still has feelings for him, but I guess destiny has chosen that she goes and becomes a nurse at a local hospital, inside a hospital, if you know what I mean. So yeah, pretty much that's pretty much Tammy's whole situation. That's pretty much the whole story on Tammy, if you will. Tammy the Squirrel. Overall, it's not too bad. I mean, not too bad, but what am I saying? Hold on. Like I said, overall, Tammy's not a bad character. I mean, again, she has the distinction, I should say, of being the first outside protagonist, ally, if you will, to become a potential love interest for one of the Rangers, in this case, Chip. We would get this, of course, later on in the series with Sparky coming in, potentially being a love interest for Gadget, and then later on, Foxglove, of course, being a love interest for Dale, or as Ian Brill puts it in a lettering page, he put it into the at the end of the 8th issue, his on and off girlfriend, or his sometimes girlfriend, if you will. Tammy, like I said, she holds that distinction as being that first character from a protagonist ally outside perspective, being a love interest to one of the Rangers. Because if you watch the show, as I've mentioned many times, and even recently in the Gadget Romance Talk updated video, basically, there have been moments when it's been inserted in, needed to be played on and everything, where, you would wonder who would Gadget end up with, and one of the sub-character developing arcs was Chip and Dale's friendly rivalry at trying to win Gadget's affections. So, yeah, to have someone like Tammy come in and be the first, like I said, outside character to become a potential love interest, I think was pretty cool. And again, like I said, fans even before the Boom Studios revival really caught on to that. They basically would expand on her relationship with the Rangers. They would in stories they would make her a Ranger. I think several examples of that are Death of a Comedian, of Mice and Mayhem. I think those are some of them that I can think of. You know, they even gave her an imaginary, well, not an imaginary, but they gave her an original OC character, a fan created OC character called Westcott, as a love interest and potential husband in some of the fan fiction stories like Death of a Comedian and of Mice and Mayhem and other stories. So they did that, which was pretty cool. And then, of course, like I said, they brought it back in Ian Brill brought it back, I should say, in 7th to 8th, in the final 2 issues of the Revival comics. So, yeah, Tammy's had a very unique run from being a unique history and a unique run. And like I said, when it comes to the fans, like I said, they gave her own love interest in that original OC Westcott. Sometimes they would even pair her off with Chip. Yeah, they would actually go through with it. They would actually have her paired off with Chip. Or heck, some would even go as far as saying, you know what? Let's create a bat clone of Dale and have Dale go with Tammy, or have a bat clone go with Foxglove of Dale and have Dale go with Gadget and Tammy go with Chip or whatever, or Tammy go with Sparky. They would come up with all different crazy scenarios. But overall, when you really think about it, Tammy, like I said, has had a unique and historic run as part of the Ranger franchise. And if they do a reboot, if Rescue Rangers is one of the shows that, the people, the executives behind the DuckTales revival on Disney Channel, Disney XD, and Disney Plus, if they're considering the Rangers as being a potential spin-off to be within the same continuity and world as DuckTales, then they obviously got to bring Tammy back there. They got to bring some kind of version of her back for that series, as I mentioned in the one video I did a couple of days ago on, spin-offs from the Disney Afternoon, what they could be like and all that. So anyway, though, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for the 78th. That's right, 78th edition of the Anime Girls Profile Confidential. We are 32, count them, 32 episodes away from 100. Gonna definitely have to look around to see what characters I can talk about, female-wise. But yeah, that's all I could say, guys, here on the 78th Animated Girls Profile Confidential on Tammy the Squirrel from Rescue Rangers. Let me know what you guys all think down below. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. And I am out. Peace.